Hi, this is Mark. Congratulations, you have found this amazingly awesome show. Chances are you're listening to it right now on whether it's iTunes or Stitcher Radio or some other mobile app that allows you to stream this amazingly awesome show to your ear holes. And I can't stress how awesomely amazing this show really is. But did you know that you can also catch the latest episode of this show on the Tangibound Network? That's right. Go check out tangiboundnetwork.com. You can look them up, and you can listen to it right there. It's even mobile friendly. What more could you ask for? Which means you can pull it up on your iPhone or your Android, even your Windows phone. Yeah, who has one of those? But still, point remains, you can do it. You can do it. Check it out, tangiboundnetwork.com. Listen to this show, the latest episode, every time. Check it out.
Hello, everybody. This is the MLBeers podcast with your hosts, Andrew Sherman and Phillip Corwin. Phillip, how you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing well. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well. Haven't really watched any baseball today. Just been trying to clean up the house a little bit, doing some recycling and all that stuff. So, how's your weekend been, I guess?
Weekend was all right. Just had to work all weekend. Then Thursday, heading out to St. Louis to go to the wedding. So
weddings. It seems like your fifth wedding of the summer. So
it's only my second, but it feels like five.
Only your second, but it feels like five. Too many people going into the weddings and all that stuff. I mean, my weekend. Yeah, go ahead.
I'll say this is just my second. I was a groomsman in both of them. So.
Okay, so it isn't that bad. Well, yeah, it is that bad because you're a groomsman. But.
Yeah, I'm expected to be, presentable.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. But my weekend, and you could say our weekend in the baseball world was pretty sad as our team did not make it into the final 8 of the College World Series. Our Long Beach State Dirtbags did not make it into the College World Series, nor did my Missouri State Bears, and your bet was officially called off Sunday night.
No baritone. I'm disappointed.
I just realized something. No bear atone. I just realized that. I can't believe I did not realize that at all. But if
we missed the pun opportunity.
Yeah, we missed the pun opportunity. But anyway, if anybody out there is listening, has been paying attention, Oregon State beat Vanderbilt. They're going into the final 8, which is the College World Series part. But Cal State Fullerton beat our Dirtbags. I believe Sunday afternoon, Florida State beat Sam Houston State, which Sam Houston State was pretty much the underdog besides Missouri State. I mean, Sam Houston State, I wasn't really expecting them to win out of the Lubbock Regional. But anyway, LSU beat Mississippi State in two long games. I believe one went into a rain delay. Texas A&M won their Super Regional over Davidson, another team that I did not see coming out of the North Carolina Regional, where North Carolina was the number 2 team this year in the college game. Another interesting thing is Texas A&M, I believe, rolled over them. Then the good old rivalry in Kentucky, Louisville versus Kentucky. Louisville won that behind one of a great performance by Brendan McKay. TCU again beat my Missouri State Bears, and of course cuts the bet off. The Horned Frogs take that, and then the Florida Gators beat Wake Forest in a 3-game set, which was really interesting because I believe 2 games out of that regional had rain delays, and I guess Florida State's the Florida State Super Regional had rain delays too. I mean, Florida right now is just getting pounded by rain. So, besides that, I mean, I already brought up Brendan McKay, another guy that that was doing well early on, but kind of fizzled out. Was my man Jake Berger. There's a couple guys from Florida State, LSU. Adam Lang did well, and the reason why I'm bringing those guys up leads on to the next part of our discussion is the MLB draft. Some of the guys went home early this weekend, but Monday night they got to see their names called. Like I said, Brendan McKay really was supposed to be the second pick to the Cincinnati Reds. I mean, yeah, he was the second rank. Hunter Green, a guy, a two-way guy, and also Brendan McKay. I totally forgot to bring that up. Both two-way guys did not go 1 and 2. The Minnesota Twins took Royce Lewis from Sierra Catholic High School, if that's how you would say it, or Zera. It's Spanish, and the J's are silent, and, all that are supposed to be an H. You know how it is. Did you ever take Spanish?
I took 3.5 years.
See, exactly. And
and all 3.5 years were spent in Richmond High School, and I think I learned how to say there's a party in my pants, and I'm pretty sure I still say that incorrectly.
Yes, I like that. But anyway, besides that, the first three guys out of the whole draft were high school guys: Mackenzie Gore, Hunter Green, and Royce Lewis, and then Brendan McKay, the two-way guy in college. Jake Berger, the guy that I brought up, my Missouri State guy, got to the White Sox in the 11th pick of the round. I was expecting him to go maybe to probably from the 23rd, the 25th pick, probably to the highest I've seen was with the Houston Astros, which was really, to me, it was just really odd to see Jake Berger go. But then again, learning that Jake Berger is somehow a White Sox fan in St. Louis. He grew up in St. Louis, but then again, it's like me. I'm a Cardinals fan that grew up in the Kansas City area. But besides that, notable key picks from out of this: J.B. Prokakis. He was a right-hander, done really well for North Carolina. I believe he was the number one starter. He went all the way down to the 15th spot, Houston picking them up. And then another guy, Jaron Kendall, which was another guy that they kind of talked a lot about. He was, really looking to be kind of, I believe he was top 5 college guy, but I knew that I thought he was going to be top 10 pick. He went all the way to 23rd. The Los Angeles Dodgers got him. And then Alex Lang, the guy that I brought up with the LSU Tigers, he went 30th to the Chicago Cubs. I think the one big thing out of all of this is that, again, there's a lot of high school picks in the first round. And for me, just as my opinion, and I know we're always talking about opinions here on this show, but just my opinion, I'm afraid that you kind of have to have a make sure guy that comes out of high school, like Derek Jeter, like Mike Trout, like Bryce Harper. And there's been guys that have come out of high school and have done well for teams in the MLB, in the organization. But it's just weird to me to see we got, then the fourth guy, Brendan McKay, Louisville, the fifth guy, Kyle Wright, Vanderbilt. 2 out of the top 5 picks are college guys, but they're in the latter part, 4 and 5. So so I'm just worried about the high school talent where you've seen McKay and Wright play in the college level, which is almost single A to double A ball essentially in college. So, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I wanted to talk about another high school guy that I found pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Jordan Adele. Did you see him at all? You know who I'm talking about?
Jordan Adele. I am looking. Was he a top first round pick?
I believe so. I'm looking up his draft right now. I
Okay.
can't. I lost it, and then
Oh, Joe Adele. Yeah.
yeah,
It has
his
it
first
as,
name.
yeah, it has Joe Adele. Yeah,
Yeah,
J-O, not J-O-E. That's where I'm like, what? Okay. Yeah, but
yeah. He went to the Angels,
mhm.
and he's out of high school, and I liked him because I read this article on him from the Undefeated, and it's by Jeremy Bembray.
Mhm.
But it's the fact that he's 6'3", and he never played any other sport besides baseball. He was never a two-way player with basketball or football or anything like that. And they're talking about how he has this type of bat speed at 7 years old. He was hitting home runs.
Interesting. My thing would be about that is, he wasn't a two-way player. I know a lot of people are like, oh, he's going to get injured,
He was
sooner or
pitching.
whatever.
He was pitching up until his senior year.
Okay, so he was kind of a two-way player in baseball,
But
not necessarily.
in baseball. And he quit pitching
Mhm.
because obviously the obvious risk.
Mhm.
And he just found out he felt that he was a better hitter, but he hit 97 miles an hour a couple times in high school.
I mean, and there's another guy that that has that two type prospect, with Hunter Green
like
and Brendan McKay. So
if because he plays the outfield,
mhm.
and so if he doesn't have, like, if his defense is good, but for some reason his bat doesn't go along with that, he always has a second chance to reamp his career as a pitcher.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like it's kind of like a reversal of Rick Ankiel. He was a pitcher at first, but then he went to the outfield and he gunned guys down from, way deep center field to third without any problem. So,
well, I still remember. Have you seen the highlights of that Bo Jackson throw?
yeah, I probably have seen the throw before, but I mean, you can reiterate for the fans.
He's playing left field. It's down in the corner in Kaufman. If you've ever been there,
Mm-hmm.
you know how that corner plays. It's rounded around,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't even look like he knows where. He doesn't have his eye on where he's throwing. He just turns around and just launches this ball, pinpoints it right to home plate, and just nails the guy. And Bo Jackson was just kind of that freak athlete, but it's that kind of arm that this guy has. He hit 97 miles an hour as a pitcher in high school.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine what that is like coming from the outfield.
Crazy.
Yeah.
My question to you before we get into the main topics of course, with our divisions we're talking about today, the Central Division, is that do you feel when you've looked at the first round, the second round, the third round, and the fourth round, do you feel like some of these teams have actually filled their needs in a way? And I'm not saying that a need of, they're not going to be automatic superstars, but a need that you see in like 3 years.
Well, just hitting on your White Sox, hitting on Jake Berger and the White Sox.
Mm-hmm.
They got a couple of Jake Berger. He plays third base right now, but I think he can translate more to a first baseman. Depending if his defense can get better, then he can play third.
Mm-hmm.
But I think he looks more like a first baseman DH type,
mm-hmm.
who can play third, but maybe not that well.
Mm-hmm.
And they got power because they drafted a guy, Gavin Sheets. Gavin Sheets is 6'3", 235. So, and Jake Berger, how he is, a lot of home runs. And Berger, he's the type of guy, he's 24 years old, so he's not going to spend a lot of time in the minors.
Mm-hmm.
And then just looking at what everyone else has done, you see a lot of pitchers go in the first round,
mm-hmm.
and you always need pitching depth. But I kind of like, since we're talking about the Central, I kind of like what the Royals did. Went out and got a high school first baseman, Nick Prado,
Mm-hmm.
and then they got a catcher, and then they got a compensation pick and got a left-handed pitcher.
Mm-hmm.
Nick Prado is 17. Eric Hosmer's in the last year of his contract, and they got a guy in the minors. Hunter Dozier could probably play first base
Mm-hmm.
if he's able to come back from being injured pretty much this whole season so far.
Mm-hmm.
And they also got a guy like Ryan O'Hearn. But if you're looking that far into the future, Nick Prado follows those guys.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, no, just looking at it as a whole, I think everyone kind of drafted kind of where we thought for the first round.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Nothing
Nothing
really shook me up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not really surprised either from, many of these teams that got their picks. I mean, I think Jaron Kendall, just, looking at the bottom half, where the bigger teams, the teams that are right now contending for a spot in the playoffs or even contending for a World Series title, Jaron Kendall, like I said, he's that guy that was that five tools prospect playing out of Vanderbilt, and he went really low. And I was surprised that he went low, like I said earlier. But really looking at the outfield for the Dodgers, I think this guy will breeze through the minors and be in the bigs in 2 years. I'm not saying a year and a half. Get that maybe in a year, but probably 2 years from now or a little bit earlier, he could be there. And that's where I'm just seeing a lot of that. And I wish I could really comment on how the Cardinals did on their picks, but of course I didn't get to pick. So for 2 rounds, I believe the Cardinals got to pick in the 3rd round. They were like the 94th pick. Yeah, the 94th pick. We got, just looking at them real quick.
Was this a year that they lost their draft picks?
Yeah, to the hacking scandal. So, yeah. And also we lost a pick to compensation too. So
just remember,
Fowler.
folks, Cardinals play baseball the right way.
Hey, we try, and we're
if you're not
4
if you're
games
not cheating,
under
you're
500.
not trying.
I mean, what can you do? We're like I said, we're 4 games under 500, I believe, or 3. No, 2 games. 2 games. My bad. I forgot this thing updated earlier. So, playing in a doubleheader at a moment with the Milwaukee Brewers. But I'm just saying that I like what we got, but I'm not, fully delved into it because it's just because we didn't get those first 2 rounds where we could, probably make that impact. But then again, I mean, through our group on Twitter, some of the best guys come from the later rounds. We talked about, Mike Piazza is the guy that was the last pick of the draft in 90, I believe, in the early 90s, and now he's a Hall of Famer. So,
and you can kind of look at it. Guys in those later rounds, I guess they like to say he has a high floor but a low ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
Like what you're going to get out of them, and they're going to be able to give you a quick turnaround. Because the 17 and 18-year-olds you draft in the 5th or later rounds might not sign with you, and they'll go off to college, and then they'll re-enter the draft 2 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
And so you take guys that are coming out of college who are, the 22, 24 years old kind of situation. So, you kind of know what you're getting out of them.
Yeah. And that's another thing too, like with these picks, it's not necessarily set in stone either. They could decline it, and either a guy could go to college, like Hunter Green could go to UCLA because he signed there to go there if he wasn't picked. But who doesn't want the money now, like Mr. Bubba Starling of the Kansas City Royals organization?
Yeah, that's a prime example of a guy who we drafted. I don't know. We didn't have the first pick, but he was a top 10 pick, and he is still in AAA. and he was drafted while I was still in high school.
Mm-hmm.
He hasn't even been called up for September call-ups.
Oh, baseball. How it's a cruel game. But yeah, what were you going to say?
I'll just hit on another top draft that has not panned out yet is Kyle Zimmer.
Mm-hmm.
I saw a tweet. He was activated off the disabled list, and then somebody commented right under it, and it says, and he was reactivated on the disabled list for being activated off of it.
I think that's supposed to be a joke. I mean, I'm not following. I don't follow Kansas City, but I'm like, that's a joke. I think that's a joke.
Yes. It's because his injury history is so long. He hasn't pitched a full season for us yet.
And
in any level.
That's kind of the sad thing, though, because if he doesn't start pitching soon, he could be scrapped to either being a reliever or not being on the team at all.
And he had the thoracic outlet syndrome surgery this last year.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that's where they take a rib or whatever out of you. And he actually made a necklace out of it.
I don't know if that's supposed to be demonic or good luck.
It's whatever. It's just kind of weird.
I mean, do what you got to do. I mean,
and if this year, if he's able to recover, I guess they could try to see him starting, but at this point, I think he's just going to be that middle relief right now.
I could see that from, what you're telling me. So anyway, do you have anything else to say?
Oh, no, I'll talk about it when I'm talking about the Royals.
I like to jump the gun, but now we got to talk about our central divisions, of course. And, we talk about the drafts, we talk about who drafted who and all that stuff. And right now, looking at both the divisions, starting with the American League Central, Minnesota 32-28, then Cleveland 31-29, Detroit 30-32, Kansas City 28-34, and the Chicago White Sox 27-35. While the NL Central, you have Milwaukee 33-32, the Cubs being 31-32, St. Louis 30-32, Cincinnati 29-34, and Pittsburgh 29-35. And looking at these picks, you kind of want them to help them out now because really, in all honesty, both of these divisions are tight as hell. I mean, Chicago with the NL Central, the Cubs are back by 1 game. St. Louis is back by a game and a half. Cincinnati by 3. Pittsburgh by 3.5. On the AL side, the Cleveland's back by 1. Detroit's back by 3. Kansas City back by 5. And the Chicago White Sox at 6. But
in the Central, at least we have 2 teams above 500.
That's true, and that's another thing too. I sometimes talk fast and I sometimes forget what I sometimes say. But yeah, there's only 2 teams in the AL that have winning records, while the NL side only has 1 team, and it was a team that we didn't expect to be leading the division.
On both ends, we didn't see the Brewers being where they're at. There's no way I want to see a projection where they had the Twins leading the division with 100 games left to go in the season.
I'm pretty sure you can do an OOTP about that. They do a lot of projections now through that.
Well, I just don't think anyone really saw the Twins and the Brewers at this point in the season being where they're at.
I mean, you're right. And, just getting into the National League to start off with, right now, looking at it all, the Brewers don't really have that nice of an ERA. I'm, just looking at it from FanGraphs, and the Brewers have a 4.17 ERA, which is middle of the road. Of course, FanGraphs likes to somehow, whatever has the highest amount is number 1, not by the lowest. And again, they're 14th with a 4.17 ERA. The Cubs have a better ERA with 4.15. Supposedly, the Cardinals have a better ERA at 3.93. And I believe these are this is from all of them as a team perspective. And it just, to me, for the National League Central sides, they have better pitching. But then you go to the National League side, and what really gets it going is that the Brewers are hitting 250. The Cardinals are hitting 250. Two teams, really top three in the division at the same mark. But then why isn't the Cubs doing so hot like they were last year? Well, the Cubs right now, as a full season, they're hitting 232. So that doesn't really help. And you have guys like Addison Russell, Kyle Schwarber, a little bit of Anthony Rizzo. I don't have those numbers up at the moment. But those guys aren't, really smashing the ball either. I mean, they're Schwarber and Russell have sub 230 batting averages, while Rizzo is about almost to the average mark, where he's probably 270. Let me get the numbers up real quick so I can be honest with the listeners out there. Yeah, Anthony Rizzo with the last 30. I should be getting up the whole full season at the moment.
I got it pulled up.
I just got it up now, and he's hitting 249. Addison Russell, 216. Kyle Schwarber, 170. These are not numbers that we should be seeing from these guys. Chris Bryant, another guy that we should be expecting to see 300 numbers, 268. We're not seeing anything like out of the Central Division that, 2 years ago was the cream of the crop, where you had the Cardinals winning 103 games, the Cubs winning 98, the Pirates winning 97, or flip those two numbers. But it's just like the central power of the NL Central has diminished very much. And for the Cubs, I'm just kind of, throwing stuff out there. The Cubs, for, seeing it right now, the Cubs are in a sophomore slump. They're in a World Series hangover. They won the World Series by blasting their way through the regular season and having dog fights through the playoffs. But now they're in that World Series hangover. And, we were expecting, having our talks from April and to May, we were expecting those two teams, the Cubs, to really just start getting out of it now and because go.
They didn't. It's the same team. They're returning the same core with Schwarber for the whole year. And when you go into the season returning the same World Series team, there shouldn't be theoretically a reason why they're struggling.
Mm-hmm.
Because, they're returning Rizzo, they're returning Baez, Russell, Bryant, Schwarber. Then they lost Dexter Fowler, but they went out and they had a nice replacement in Alberto Almora, who's batting 270. He's batting the best on the team right now.
Mm-hmm.
And then Jason Hayward, at least he's hitting better than last year.
Mm-hmm. I mean, just better, I guess. I mean, just looking at it right now, 258.
It's 258.
It wasn't
but
anything fancy when he was in the playoffs where he was hitting, Mendoza line the whole time.
Yeah. But, they got guys on their bench like Zobrist. He's only played 54 games out of the 64.
Mm-hmm.
And he's batting 223. And that's a guy, they went out and gave a nice 4-year contract to.
Yeah, and
at 35 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So, which at that point doesn't seem like the smartest idea to give a 35-year-old. They got John Jay, who has 108 at-bats, batting 287.
Yeah, and he's played in 52 games.
Yeah, so and Schwarber has played 57 games and then hit 11 home runs and only has 26 RBI. So how long do they keep giving that left field spot to Schwarber before? You can't. You can't let a guy hit 170 and strike out 71 times, leading the team in strikeouts, and he doesn't lead the team in walks. He has 32 walks, so he does walk well. But he's striking out 71 times, has a 170 batting average, 11 home runs, 26 RBIs. He only has 34 hits for the whole season.
I mean, looking at it and what you've been saying, he's literally the term boom or bust, because like you said, he leads the team in strikeouts with 71. His batting average right now is 170. His BABIP right now is 195. That is abysmal, folks, and I have never seen anything like that in my entire life. But he's hitting 11 home runs. He has 26 RBIs.
And guys that have more home runs than him. Look at Anthony Rizzo, 13, 37 RBIs. Javier Baez has 9 home runs and 26 RBIs. He has many as RBIs as Kyle Schwarber. And I know RBIs is a weird stat because it all kind of depends on who's hitting in front of you, where you're hitting at the lineup, and how many opportunities is Baez compared to Schwarber getting. I don't have those advanced stats pulled up in front of me, but I'm just looking at it as a whole. You can't keep Schwarber in the lineup every day.
Yeah, and, I think really what you have to do is give Ian Happ, Tommy LaStella some reps in. I mean, I know Ian Happ has already had 26. Tommy LaStella has 16. But you just got to give him more. And maybe
John Jay. Let's see what John Jay can do for you, because off the bench he's providing you a 287 in 52 games.
And that's another thing too, is not only that he's providing all that stuff. When he was with St. Louis, he wasn't your power smash hitter like Schwarber is. He's that nice contact guy. He can get you on base. And really, some of the hits in the 2011 World Series were off of him. And he has good defense. He's not, some chum out in, BFE. He's a guy that's, has a veteran presence, but it's not, he doesn't have that big name because he's not, smashing 30 home runs, having a batting average of 300 plus.
What harm would it do if John Jay stepped in, and I don't know Kyle Schwarber's contract or anything like that, but if he has an option, go down to AAA. Look what the Royals did with Jorge Soler. Let Kyle Schwarber keep getting everyday at bats, but maybe gain a little bit of self-confidence. Let him let him reset. Look what it did for, I'm going to keep using Royal analogies because that's who I knew best. Look what it did for Mike Moustakas. Look what it did for Alex Gordon.
I mean,
it could help.
I mean, you can even say that. I mean, I don't know how it's going on right now, but you could say that for almost Randall Grichuk. I mean, the first time I heard it, that he went down to single A to get batting advice with a specialist down in single A. I thought it was a joke, but I mean, it's an honesty. And Grichuk, of course, St. Louis guy, he's not, again, Kyle Schwarber, where he's boom or bust, but he has a bust tendency where he does strike out a lot. He does have those clutch moments like Schwarber, but that guy, there was moments where he can get a hit and then just strike out 3 times in a row. And, Kyle Schwarber needs that to, really step himself up. But, I mean, you can't just always, the position players are really different guys. But, you have to look at other things too. You have to look at the pitching. And really at starters level, the past 2 years, we had guys that had sub 2, sub 3 ERAs. Now they're all 4s. You have John Lester at a 4.13. You had Jake Arrieta, which I believe, did he win the Cy Young in 15? If I remember correctly.
That sounds right.
Anyway,
but memory.
Yeah, he did so well. Now he's having a 4.68. Kyle Hendricks, a guy that was doing so well last year, 4.09. And then John Lackey, the 5th starter, pretty much, with a 4th starter, he's have a 5.26. Brett Anderson, your 5 starter, had an 8.18 before. I believe he's injured now, but Eddie Butler has come in. Mike Montgomery has come in for 1 game. guys are still above 4. Eddie Butler has done better with a 4.03, but it's just, they're not doing what's supposed to happen. And I mean, I guess you can look at the bright spot with the bullpen. I mean, Wade Davis has a 2.21. A 1.21 ERA. Carl Edwards Jr. with a 1.07. Mike Montgomery, he's more of the reliever, even though I brought him up as a starter. 2.21. Koji Urahara, 2.82. There's been moments where they've brought in guys, I think, from some of the late games, like Pierce Johnson. He's only had 1 inning, but he has that 0 ERA. I'm not saying he's going to be the guy that's going to come up, but there's also guys, those 3 guys that I said first, 4, Wade Davis, Carl Edwards Jr., Mike Montgomery, and Koji Urahara, those have been the guys that really have held down the Cubs in the back end. I mean, Hector Rendon a couple years back was the reliever for the team, but now he has a 4.18 ERA. Yes, he does have a high K per 9 rate at 11.3, but it's just different now than what it used to be from last year. So,
okay, I don't know why I just caught my eye, but I didn't really like Koji Urahara is 42 years old.
Oh yeah, he's an old guy. I mean, that's the one thing. It's all about those Japanese players. They can go for a very long time.
Well, it's like Suzuki said he wanted to die on the field.
Yeah, he wanted to play he wanted to play over 50 years old. So, I mean, the Japanese players, really take care of themselves well. And, unlike David Ortiz or other big guys like Mo Vaughn, those guys were so big, but they had to, they were only DH players. But these guys, Japanese players, just take care of themselves so well. But, with the Cubs, I've got to talk about the other side of the apex, where we were expecting greatness again out of this Cubs team, but now it's coming. Now it's just for the greatness, but not seeing anything. If I can talk, now it's just the Brewers, the Milwaukee Brewers. If I can, really think, the Milwaukee Brewers, where they had where we expected them to do really bad, but then they got really good. But they actually started to be really good. So I know that I try to make sense of all of it and try to make sense of everybody, but I want to talk about the Milwaukee Brewers, and really, to be honest with you, like I said, they are a team that we did not expect to do so well. And they're 33-32. They're a game above 500. They're in the lead of the division, but what really makes this team set apart? And looking at it, just looking at it like I brought up earlier, they're only hitting 250 as a team, and really their pitching is just they're 14th with a 4.17 ERA. But what makes this team more interesting is that they can actually hit. Their players can hit. They're doing well. And I mean, just looking at it, going by how many games they've played with all the players, Domingo Santana, 281, Jesse Aguilar, Jesus Aguilar, I believe is the actual pronunciation, 282, Orlando Arcia, 262, Jonathan Villar, you also got to talk about the guys that haven't done well. 213, Eric Thames, 256, Hernan Perez, 270, Travis Shaw, 298. I mean, some of these guys, are actually doing well. Ryan Braun, before, I believe he's still on the DL, but before he went on the DL, 262. Manny Pena, 295. And getting back to the Cubs talk, we weren't talking about those numbers. We were talking about numbers like Jonathan Villar, 213s, like Keon Broxton, 214s. And it just, with this team, they've actually done stuff. And I know that we have to look at all of it. So, if we're doing edges, if we're doing like a matchup edges to edges, with the edges, position players right now, hitting-wise, you got to give it to the Brewers. Pitching-wise, starter-wise, actually, you got to give it to the Brewers. And Chase Anderson, 2.83 ERA. Jimmy Nelson, I want to say Nielsen.
The goalkeeper for
Sporting KC. Former goalkeeper, now the coach of the Oklahoma City Energy, which Sporting KC used to own them. Now they have the Rangers, blah, blah, blah. That's a different story. If you want to talk about that, you can always hit me up on Twitter. Fun times. But anyways, Jimmy Nelson, 345. Matt Garza, 383. Zach Davies, a 474. And then Tommy Malone with a 514. But you also have to give, other nods to Willie Peralta. Not so much, he's not doing well, but he's actually third in Ks per nine with a 720, right behind Chase Anderson and Jimmy Nelson. But Junior Guerrera, he's only had 25 and 2/3 of an innings, but he has a 2.45 ERA.
So he's filling in really nicely for Matt Garza.
Yeah.
And so if Willie Peralta keeps pitching at his 6.57 ERA, when Garza comes back, they could theoretically just push Peralta out of the rotation.
Yeah, and I mean, right now I don't have all the injury list right in front of me, but I know some of the guys. I mean, the pitching right now is done well for them, and that's another thing. That's another thing that you got to give as an edge to the Milwaukee Brewers, why they're doing much better than the Chicago Cubs. And then, of course, you got to talk about the relievers. I know you love the relievers so much, Phil. You are the reliever master.
I got spoiled in 2014 and 2015 with the Royals.
Yeah, that is really spoiled.
Like when you can go Herrera, Davis, and Holland, like all you had to do is a pitcher get to the sixth inning.
Mm-hmm.
And you've seen a lot of teams try to take that mold. And I don't know necessarily if the Brewers are doing that, but they got a guy, Corey Nabel, hitting in with 31 innings, second most on the team for the bullpen, coming out of the 115. 32 games. Carlos Torres, 486. Jacob Barnes, 377. Neftali, no.
Neftali Feliz.
Yes.
It's Neftali Feliz. That's how it is.
And 588, and Jordan Hughes at a 401. So those top five guys, or those top four minus Nabel, you could say they're struggling. Because if you're relievers, you don't want your relievers with 4+ ERAs. That's not a good stat. But It looks like they've done enough damage control and bullpen management to where it hasn't hurt them yet. And so that comes back on the manager. What is it, Craig Counsell?
Yeah.
And I still remember him for his funky ass batting stance.
Funky ass batting stance. I like it.
Have you not seen his?
It's been a while since I've seen his batting stance.
I want to say he played for the Diamondbacks.
Diamondbacks and the Marlins, if I believe. But anyway,
it doesn't matter what his batting stance looks like. Doesn't matter. But he's done a good. It seems as if he's done, because I haven't watched a single game of the Brewers this year. But when you have guys with that higher ERA, but you're still winning your division and have a winning record, you're managing the damage. And it seems to be working for them so far.
Yes. And, like I was bringing up edges earlier, the Cubs got them here. But the Cubs win 1 out of 3. Brewers win 2 out of 3. That's if you put it in a 3-game series, the Brewers win the series, and that's how it would go on. And really looking at this, looking at the Brewers, I'm still amazed how well they are doing when they're middle of the road. And I mean, you could say that with another team, my team, in a way where they are the middle of the road between the Cubs having talent but doing poorly, and then with the Brewers having there's some talent but it's not, elite caliber, but they're winning. And the Cardinals are the perfect center team. And the reason why I say that is because right now, batting average as a full season, 250. I mean, of course, that's average and middle of the road. But then you got to look at their pitching, though. And this is just all pitching, is a 374. Look at the starters pitching. I believe, if I remember correctly, if I can get it up real quick, 348. Relievers pitching as a whole, we have, if I can look at it, a 480, which somehow I do not believe it should be a 480, but you got to take what you got, But looking at the Cardinals at a whole, looking at what they've done, they were on the 7-game losing streak on the road. They lose 4 straight to the Reds. They lose 3 straight with the Cubs. We were coming in hot. They beat the LA Dodgers twice, but they were in close games. But the reason why this team, like I've said, is really that middle of the road is because you have guys like Jed Jerko and Tommy Pham hitting over 300, but then you have Dexter Fowler hitting 230. Then you have Yadier Molina, 258. Matt Carpenter, really the guy that was supposed to, boost the bats up in the middle of the lineup, well, higher up in the lineup, 223. Aledmys Diaz, 258. So that's where you get your Brewers numbers on the hitting side, where some of the guys are middle of the average, and then like I said, Dexter Fowler, 230. Those, I guess, premium guys not doing so hot. And then, but you got to look at the pitching, though. You have Carlos Martinez that finally had his first ever complete game shutout. Finally.
You say finally, like it was, like that's supposed to happen.
It was. And I know that sounds weird. Carlos Martinez has been in the league for 3 years now, since near the end of the 2013 season.
I'm sure there are plenty of good pitchers who've never thrown a complete game shutout.
Yeah, but you're expecting this from Martinez, which he's done so well. And I know you say that there's probably good to great pitchers that have never done it. Some have, some haven't. Some have perfect games, some have no hitters, But the reason why I say finally is because the last 2 attempts that he went full game, complete game, they lose it in the 9th, or they lose it in the 8th, or they lose it in extras. And that's where the Cardinals are kind of weird about this. And, like I said, Carlos Martinez with a 2.95 ERA. Mike Leake with a 2.70 ERA. Adam Wainwright, 4.73. Michael Wacha with a 4.50, and then you have Lance Lynn with a 2.88 ERA. And these guys, they're not the Brewers where they don't have low K per 9 rates. Carlos Martinez right now has a 10.09. Mike Leake has a 6.53. Adam Wainwright, 7.68. Michael Wacha, 8.25. And Lance Lynn with an 8.26. That's kind of your guys from the Cubs. But again, it's not happening because, again, it's to the last part, the relieving core. And there's no guy that has been dominant. There's, I guess, glimpses.
You can make the argument for, you got a guy like Trevor Rosenthal. 2.66 ERA and a 15.6 strikeout per 9.
But that's from coming from finally being off the DL, finally finding his groove, and not being
20. He has 23 innings pitched. That's third most out of the bullpen.
Yeah, but it's finally the thing about him was earlier in the season he was thinking he was going to be the closer for the team, and he started to do poorly. Then he finally got his grasp in. Yeah, he has 23 and 2/3 of an inning, which is third highest with the team in the bullpen, but early on he was just finally struggling. Now he's getting these flashes of greatness where it looks great. I mean, that 15.59 K per nine looks great. That 3.04 walks per nine even looks better. And yeah, of course, we already talked about the ERA of 2.66. But then you got to look at Suwano, a guy that has a 3.10 ERA. You brought up earlier, you don't want all your guys to have that 4+ ERA. Another guy that should have been doing well. Again, his freshman year was this great year. Then finally, when he gets into the sophomore season, kind of like the Cubs, they haven't been so hot. He's in his sophomore season, he's not doing so hot. Matt Bowman, a young guy that's coming in, he has a 4.71 ERA. Samuel, even though I say Sam, it's just Sam Tuivalala, 3.27 ERA. A guy that only has 11 innings pitched is doing better than Jonathan Broxton, which I will say things
he
in
was
a moment.
DFA'd.
Yeah, he was DFA'd. Then Tyler Lyons with that 5.40 ERA. John Babreba has a 3.60. Michael Sokolovich, 8.68. I mean, Brett Cecil, John Gant, and Kevin Seagrass haven't done well either. They're 450 plus. And
if you look at the Cardinals bullpen, besides Rosenthal and O, they're all doing pretty terrible.
Yeah, and that's where it's getting to the point where you're seeing this beautiful, and I hate to say it like it's an art piece, but it is a beautiful mixture between the Cubs and the Brewers, because the Cubs, they are, like I said, they have the talent, but their sophomore season and they're not doing so hot. The Milwaukee Brewers, not so much talent. I mean, they got the talent, but it's not caliber. It's not elite, but they're getting the job done. And the Cardinals have this beautiful mix where some of the talent isn't doing so hot, but the guys that, aren't elite caliber are getting the job done. And, really looking at it from here, the bullpen has always been a problem, and there's always need of fixing. And, of course, like you said, Jonathan Broxton was DFA'd, and I want to say Willie Peralta, but Johnny Peralta actually was DFA'd too during the seven game losing streak once they finally got home.
Pretty surprising, because they've moved heaven and earth to try to make that work.
And, I mean, you could say the same thing about Matt Adams. They tried to do the same thing, and it didn't work. Matt Adams now is hitting, 260 with 8 home runs and all that. And with Johnny Peralta, the difference maker is with him, he had that injury. Jed Jerko was starting to get hot, as you could tell, 3.07 ERA compared to Peralta's 2.04. And there was just nowhere that Peralta could go. And they had to drop him, which makes sense, gives them the opportunity to add somebody else into the lineup. I mean, we've already had Paul DeYoung be in there. Jose Martinez has already been in there. Chad Huffman is another guy that's been in the lineup, well, as more of a bench player than being in the lineup. But it's just, looking at this team, it's that perfect mixture of it all. So...
And, you got a guy like Greg Garcia as well, who I know he's only hitting 241 and 79 at-bats, but he's a guy that could fill in anywhere in the infield for you.
Yeah, that was another thing, too, about Greg Garcia. He's a young, healthy guy. He can play anywhere in the infield. You can't do that with Johnny Peralta. He used to be that shortstop. Then they had to move him to third base because of Aledmys Diaz. He wasn't so hot in the hot corner, so then they, he got injured too, and Jed Jerko started to do well, and then somehow Matt Carpenter became the first baseman, even though I'd rather have him at third. But I mean, that's whatever. I guess that's a whole different story. But just looking at those three teams, you can't really say anything much else about the Cincinnati Reds. I mean, if you want to, but really, the three teams to worry about are teams where they're, I guess, meddling in purgatory. You don't know if they're going to be heavenly and start winning, or they're just waiting to become shit and go to hell. And I hate to say it like that, but it's true. Because you can look at, just as an example, you can look at the National League East. You have Washington that is completely tearing the ball off tearing the cover off the ball, having 38 and 25. But the other teams, 29 and 33 with the Mets, 28 and 35 with Atlanta, and so on and so forth. Got, teams that are really, really under 500. But the three teams, the Brewers, the Cubs, and the Cardinals, they're teams that are meddling by the 500 marker and really hasn't shown themselves. And I don't know when that's going to happen. So, what can you do?
Ride it out and see if they can turn something around. But at this point, I don't really think they can do it. And they really aren't competing. And the Cardinals aren't really a team to really sell off any players either.
That's their MO. They don't really sell any of their players off unless they can get really something out of it. But right now, if you're trying to look at trade deadlines with these teams, the Milwaukee Brewers could try to do something, the Cubs could do something, not St. Louis. But then like I said, they're meddling at 500, even though two of them are under 500. Why they're meddling leaves the last two teams, the Cincinnati Reds and the Pittsburgh Pirates, in contention, where it's just Cincinnati has done well. They did well in April. They won in April, and now they finally cooled off into that nice fourth position. Pittsburgh, a team that, kind of like Milwaukee, we weren't expecting much of a decline. We were expecting them to maybe be third, fourth in the division, but Pittsburgh has gone to the crapper. But they are coming back. They are on a 3-game winning streak, and they're doing what, they're doing the best that they can with a team that's, kind of subpar and kind of injured and suspended. That Starling Marte suspension really killed them in a way.
Oh, yeah. When you're going into the season thinking Starling Marte is going to be your starting center fielder, and even before his suspension, if Baseball Reference will have his stats, in his 13 games, he was only hitting 241 with 17 strikeouts. Mm-hmm. So whatever he was taking wasn't really helping.
I guess unless he's taking a pill form of what Kyle Schwarber's doing, just a boom or bust guy.
Yeah. But, so that rearranges their outfield, where you got John Jaso playing right field for you.
And I believe, if I'm, just thinking about it at the moment, I believe he's injured at the moment. But of course, I got to check my sources. Got to check roster resource.
Doesn't have him on Baseball Reference as being injured. Okay,
so he's somewhere else, I guess.
Yeah.
There we go.
But Francisco Cervelli is on a 7-day DL with a concussion. Mm-hmm. And, the only guy that's like Adam Frazier, a young guy, 25, is hitting 295 for him. Josh Harrison playing second base is hitting 311 for him. So they have guys that are David Freese is hitting 272. Jordy Mercer's 271. Andrew McCutchen is hitting 250, so he's declining. Mm-hmm. But, and then if you look at their pitching, Garrett Cole, their number one draft pick, 4.83 ERA.
Mm-hmm.
Tyler Glasnow, 7.45.
Mm-hmm. Which is almost kind of surprising because he was doing well in minor leagues, and now he's actually facing MLB pitching. I mean, hitting.
Glasnow, Cool, and Jamison Talon.
Mm-hmm.
Those are 3 of their top pitching prospects up right now at 23, 24, and 25 years old.
Mm-hmm. So
it's really hard to say the book is out on them. This is who they are. They have plenty of time to adjust and get better.
Yeah, and, before, we go on to say anything else, the great thing is Jamison Talon started this past weekend for the Pirates. He finally got out of that. I believe it was a month. He was on the DL for a month or 2, I believe, for his just taking a break when he had testicular cancer, just healing up from the surgeries and all that stuff. But now he's finally back, and I believe he did in his last game, if it will pull up real quick, I believe in his last game he did well. I'm not saying he did poorly. Let's take a gander, shall we? He went 5 innings. He struck out 9 in that, struck out 5, only walked 2. He only gave up 5 hits. So, I mean, he did well, for that outing. And it was, it was against the Colorado Rockies, and I didn't even know this, but they won. So,
yeah. So, he's coming back from, his injury, not injury, but diagnosis, and coming back and pitching well for him. He already has 40 innings underneath his belt, 2.90 ERA. And the other guys, Chad Cool, and Tyler Glasnow, both have 54 and a third innings pitched, both 7.45 and a 5.63 ERA.
And, with the last 2 teams, I keep on bringing up the Reds and we're talking about the Pirates, I think we're just now probably seeing a change with the Pittsburgh Pirates now. We kind of saw it earlier with the Cincinnati Reds, but now we're seeing a change where we might start seeing those rebuilding processes, give up some guys like Andrew McCutchen, and just start from scratch. And
but
that
what
could
kind
be
of
it. But
at this age, though, what is McCutchen going to bring?
Really, I don't know. That's another thing too.
And I say age; he's only 30 years old, but he has digressed significantly this season and the season before.
Yeah, and that's another weird thing where he's digressed. I mean, it's a catastrophic amount. It wasn't, you're seeing it year by year and it was a 5-year progression. It's only a year and a half and you're just seeing the bottom of the barrel. So,
yeah.
But that's everything about the National League Central, where it's a bunch of uncertainty. Everybody is within 4 games of each other, but who's going to really break out? And, even though it's mid-June, we should start seeing everybody, everybody's true colors. I don't think that's going to happen until after the trade deadline in late July, if I can talk. But that's it. I mean, I don't know what else I could say. Right now, everybody in the NL Central is in purgatory. So,
let's see if they can fight their way out.
I mean, that's really the only way you can do it for
the
baseball.
Central in both divisions. It's nitty gritty.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not pretty baseball. It's not, you don't have a team like the Yankees or the Astros or the Nationals or the Rockies or the Dodgers in either Central Division. It's teams that are more or less on the same page and just a little bit worse and a little bit better here and there. So it's, you could really see, even for that second wildcard spot and the top spot in the Central Divisions in both degrees, you could see a knockdown, dragged out dogfight.
Yeah, and I mean, to the very end.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, and that's great. That's great baseball, great television.
It is. Like, yeah, technically they're losing teams, but they have the chance to win their division because they're only 5 games back.
Exactly.
That's not even a full week of playing good baseball.
Even though it'd really help.
Yeah. If the Tigers and the Cardinals turned around and went, took like 12 of 16?
Yeah.
What would that do? That would put them theoretically almost at top of their division for playing a good week and a half of baseball.
Mm-hmm.
That's them winning the series for 2 weeks in a row.
And that's right, and that's what you got to do. I believe that right now you have to go streaking, and you have to go, last 10 wise, you have to go at least 7-3 out of your last 10, all the time. And I mean, just as a little quick thing before we go to break, looking at the streaks, you have Milwaukee losing the last 3. Chicago Cubs lost last night. St. Louis is on a 4-game winning streak. Cincinnati's on a 4-game losing streak. And the Pittsburgh Pirates, like I said earlier, are on this 3-game winning streak. But then you look at the last 10, you have mixtures of 4-6 and 5-5. And that's where it comes down.
That's where it's going to hurt you.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're gonna make a run, you've got it. Like you said, you got to be taking 7 of 3.
Yeah, exactly. You can't really do anything else. So is that everything you want to say about that? Because I am
yes.
almost exhausted with talking about how this Central Division has been. So,
well, we can take a minute. You can crack a cold one with the boys, and we'll be right back.
Alrighty, awesome. We'll be right back here with the MLBeers podcast. Hello, everybody. We're back for the MLBeers podcast, and of course, right now we're going to be talking about the second part of the name, the beers. So, Phil, what are you drinking tonight?
Well, let me crack the cold one open.
You had to do it again.
I am drinking Logboat, surprise, surprise, and it is their seasonal lager release. It's called Bobby Lager.
Okay.
It is a unfiltered lager brewed with the inspiration from pale German lagers. Noble hops provide little bitterness and lend to the crisp finish with a hint of floral notes. Okay. And they threw in there best of luck with the bass fishing.
That actually sounds pretty good. And especially...
No, it comes in at 5%. And, if you drink a traditional lager or anything like that, that's the kind of... You're going to get those Pilsner malts. You're going to get the Noble hop. You're going to get that traditional just... When people think beer, that is the taste you're getting. But it sits a little heavy because it is unfiltered, so it's not see-through.
Yeah, and it's not filled with rice either.
No. No. But, no, it's a good one to drink, like, right now when it is, what is it? It is 9:37 at night.
9:37 at night, and, yeah, go ahead.
It is coming in at 89 degrees.
Yeah, I think we're getting the same temperature down here. So, I mean,
so
it is a good beer.
It's a good one because it is dry, but it's not drying your mouth out. It's not super heavy on your stomach. Mm-hmm. It's not super alcoholic, so you're not. The ABV isn't high, so you're not damaging yourself.
Yeah, you're not getting that boozy effect.
No.
And yeah, if that's everything for me, I wanted to try this for a while. A coworker had recommended this for me, but it is the Samuel Smith Oatmeal Stout. I've seen the chocolate stout, and I've seen other natural stuff that they had, and that's another thing too. Most of the stuff is natural, quote unquote, beers
because it's all imported from England.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that
If for you those who don't know what Samuel Smith is, it's an import beer from the United Kingdom.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, it is a really it's a good, it's a typical oatmeal stout, and I mean it's smooth. It's a little, but you get that heavy feel of it because of it being a stout. I believe it is at a, if it will tell me, unless it doesn't want me to know that it has a lot of ABVs in it.
I don't think it's very high.
I don't think it's very high either. I think it's a nice, a normal 5. And yeah, it doesn't look like it says anything about it. But, I really like this. It's probably the better of the oatmeal stouts that I've had. I think the one that you could compare it to, that is an American version, is Tallgrass Brewing Company's Buffalo Sweat.
Have you had Schlafly's?
No. I know that they have one, but they make
a pretty solid oatmeal stout.
Mm-hmm. And oatmeal stouts, the interesting thing about oatmeal stouts is that they are difficult to make. Being a home brewer and wanting to get back into it, looking at recipes, you have to make sure your oatmeal is ready to go, ready to be soaked, and ready to be in the boil when you make it. And that's why it kind of comes out smooth, is because of that the oatmeal from the oatmeal, I should say. And it's not, you get that, nice smoky taste, but it's not, you don't get that, you get that nice smoky taste. You're not getting a lot of chocolate hints. I mean, you do get chocolate hints, but it's not like a normal Guinness and, of course, a chocolate stout where you get those chocolate hints. But it's a really smooth beer, and that's what I really do like it. So,
speaking of when I first had this beer, this Bobby Lager, I think in the group I shared it of what I did with that chicken when I smoked that chicken.
Oh my God, that was delicious chicken. I didn't taste it, but my mind.
But yeah, no, like give the listeners a little bit of insight. I brined chicken in apple juice, jalapenos, and salt for about 5.5 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And then I smoked the chicken with applewood and charcoal at 250 for about 2 hours.
Mm.
But before I put, after I took it out of the brine, I dried the chicken off. I make my own barbecue rubbed it all on there. And I didn't wrap the chicken in foil or anything. I put it right on the grill rack, smoked it for 2.5 hours 2 hours. And it was really fucking good.
Mm-hmm. And it sounds good. I want some now. So.
And then the last 15 minutes, I did brush on some Gates barbecue sauce.
You're a Gates man.
I am. I like the thinner vinegar spiciness.
I like Arthur Bryant's. That's just me though. But again,
at least you're not Sweet Baby Ray's.
My family does that. It's okay.
My dad does Sweet Baby Ray's too, and I hate it so goddamn much.
It's
so thick and sweet, and when I want a barbecue sauce,
mm-hmm.
I want it a little bit thinner. I want that vinegar bite, mm-hmm. and I want it to be spicy. I want a little bit of heat from it, not over the top, but I want some heat from it.
There is something, speaking of, there's just something about the Arthur Bryant's barbecue sauce that I just was like, oh my God, this is so good. But but we don't get it down here. That's where it's just like
we get Gates down here. We don't get Arthur Bryant's. But I had Jack Stack or
mm-hmm.
KC Joe's is what they call it now.
Yeah, not Joe's, Oklahoma Joe's, but yes, yeah. Keep on going.
I had their spicy barbecue sauce, and it was a little bit heartier. It was thick, almost like you want to think like a ketchup, but that was some damn good barbecue sauce too.
Now I'm just hungry from all the barbecue. But
right, let's keep talking about this isn't a barbecue podcast.
Yeah, exactly. But also, yeah, go ahead.
We're from the Midwest in Kansas City, where the best barbecue lives. So,
no offense to listeners that are in the Carolinas, Texas, Memphis.
there's plenty of offense.
Yeah,
I mean it.
I guess, yeah.
I will fight all of you.
I will fight. You can't say anything about St. Louis because St. Louis is just a mixture of Kansas City and Memphis.
And East Coast barbecue. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the other thing too. St. Louis, I'm sorry. I love the baseball team, but your barbecue is nowhere matches Kansas City's. And I wanted to say another thing too. We're in our almost to the food, almost finished with our food segment. It seems like, but I actually just opened up another beer and
cracked open the cold one.
Cracked open. God dang it! I'm gonna punch you. But anyway, it is a Oklahoma beer. It is called Enceto, a dried hop sour ale with Italian plum by Stillwater Arsenal.
Stillwater Arsenal. Are they Stillwater? I thought they were out of Georgia.
It could be Georgia, but Stillwater makes me think of. No, it's Oh man, there's too many words on here. Brewed in can, blah blah blah, distributed by blah blah blah. It says Stratford, Connecticut, and other names too, like Brooklyn, New York, and Cass. I'm guessing, Alaska. I can't remember their. But anyway, Anyway, you could be right. They're from Georgia. It sounds like an Oklahoma beer because Stillwater's home of the Oklahoma State University. Anyway, I just opened it up. The woman at the Brown Derby down here has never tried it, so she just was like, "Yeah, tried this," and I bought it. Blah blah blah. So anyway, here we go.
When you say the Brown Derby, do you drop them off at the Super Bowl very often?
Not very often, but that is pretty damn good. It's got that, like it says, it's got that nice dry hop taste up front, but it's smooth. The palate gets a little dry, but it's not too much. And you do get that nice plum taste out of it. So, if we're making any recommendations here for beers, I give it a thumbs up, and yeah, you guys should try it. Oh my God, that sounded so terrifying. That was like a baby crying and explosions. But anyway, Enceto by Stillwater Arsenals, pretty dang good. I recommend it. It comes in a can though, so don't look for it in a bottle unless they start making bottles. But anyway, I think we've had a good, lovely conversation about our beers that we're having tonight. So, Phil, are you ready to talk about your NL Central?
Yes, I'm not going to talk about the NL because you already did that, but I'll talk about the AL.
The AL Central, my bad. But anyway, let's give it a little standings taste real quick. The Minnesota Twins, 32-28. The Cleveland Indians, 31-29. The Detroit Tigers, 30-32. The Kansas City Royals, 28-34. And the Chicago White Sox, 27-35. Cleveland being a game back, Detroit 3 games, Kansas City 5, and the Chicago White Sox 6 games back. And sorry about that. I think I'm feeling something off these beers now. So
too many cold ones with the boys.
Quit it. Just quit it.
I just can't quit you.
Yeah, I can't quit you either. So anyway. Get to it.
Looking at the muddled AL Central, it's a very similar situation to what's going on in the NL. You got a Minnesota Twins team that's at top of the division that really no one saw them coming up to this point. The Cleveland Indians are starting to make a decent comeback. They're only a game back. Detroit Tigers, we already ran down the standings, but the Twins have kind of flip-flopped this division. Going into it, I think I projected it going Indians, Tigers, Royals, Twins, White Sox.
Yes. I think we kind of had the same going in.
Yeah. And if you're looking at the Twins, as a team, they're batting .250. And the rest of the division, like the Cleveland Indians, are batting .246. Detroit Tigers, .255. The Royals somehow are batting a .238. and where the Chicago White Sox are batting a 258. So within the AL, they're not hitting that well. The league average for the AL is a 253.
Mm-hmm.
So the only team above that is the Tigers and the White Sox.
Mm-hmm.
Royals, like I said, 238, Twins 250, and the Cleveland Indians at a 246. So there's not a whole lot of good overall hitting coming out of the division.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at the team's ERAs, and this is accounting for the team as a whole, Cleveland Indians coming in at 397, which is very good as a team as a whole. If your team as a whole is coming in at 397 ERA with 527 innings pitched, you're doing something right.
Mm-hmm.
Chicago White Sox, 432. Detroit Tigers, 474. Kansas City Royals, 438. And Minnesota Twins, 487. So the Twins have the worst of the ERA of the teams, but they're winning the division right now. And if you look at what they're doing as a whole, it's in large part to do with either having a nice resurgence from Joe Mauer, batting 284.
Mm-hmm.
Miguel Sano is coming into his own at 24 years old, 288. So you got two guys who are hitting well above the league average.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at the team as a whole, Jason Castro, 218. Brian Dozier, 243. And Brian Dozier only has 10 home runs. Last year, he hit 43.
Mm-hmm.
So his home run numbers have fallen off. Jorge Polanco, 250. Eddie Rosario, 250. Byron Buxton, highly touted prospect for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
I say a very long time. He's only 23 years old, but he came out of high school. So it's been 5 years.
Yeah, and then he pretty much got into the team 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And he hasn't really produced anything.
No,
He's
not
just
even
been-
stolen base numbers either.
Yeah.
And that's one thing, like, his speed is what set him apart. And he's batting 200 with 65 strikeouts and only 16 walks. Max Kepler, again, another rookie, 250. Robbie Grossman, he is hitting above the 260 mark at 269.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't have... What? You there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay. Sorry. My screen just went dark.
Just went blank.
Yep. Oh, everything's coming back slowly but surely.
There you go.
And...
This is staying in the show. I just wanted to know.
Oh, awesome. I appreciate that.
Yeah, this is we got to show the fans that there is some technical outputs sometimes. There's some technical difficulties, but we like to keep the show going no matter what's going on.
MLBeers versus Skype. Skype is up this round.
Skype. Last week we really subdued Skype, but this go around we've had a little bit of troubles, but we're not backing down from the fight. And so, back to what you were saying about the Twins, looking at this, and I hate to start making comparisons, but this team looks similar at batting wise, to the Milwaukee Brewers.
And if you turn around and look at what they're doing pitching wise, they got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They got about 5 guys pitching just excellent baseball. Irvin Santana, by far right now, I think is the best pitcher in the league. His strikeout numbers aren't high, but he's coming in with a 2.20 ERA, 13 games started, 3 complete games already.
Yes.
Which, if you have ever followed Irvin Santana's career, this is very odd.
Yes. He's always had that odd career. He started with the Braves, correct?
I don't remember.
For some odd reason, I think I get Irvin Santana and Johan Santana mixed up. Because I know Johan Santana started with the Twins. And for some odd reason, I think Irvin Santana started with the Twins. But I think the last time we talked
about this before. He started with the Angels.
He started with the Angels.
He pitched with the Angels from 05 to 12. Royals in 13, Braves in 14, and then Minnesota from 15 on.
A's. Too many A teams. Let's have some B, C's, D's, E, F, G's teams. But keep on.
And then you look at the rest of their starting rotation. Hector Santiago, 10-day DL, 526. Kyle Gibson, 652. Phil Hughes, 10-day DL, 574. But they got Jose Barreros, 284 in 6 games. And Alberte Mejia, one of their prospects, 8 games started, 575. But take a look at their bullpen. They only have one guy in their constant rotation of their bullpen, or 2 guys, I'm sorry, with a +4 ERA. Brandon Kinsler, 296, 17 saves. Tyler Duffy, 313. Taylor Rogers, 310. But then you got Matt Bessel, 859, and Craig Breslow at a 509. So you got this team's just a little bit abnormal, and I think it's starting to catch up to them.
And another thing, looking back and forth at these at the teams, I have my starting pitchers set up as game started, so it'd be easier to read, and then I have my relievers set up with innings pitched, and looking at this, most of the guys on the relieving side have better K per 9 numbers than the starters. And I know that you kind of want to have similar numbers, similar high numbers. Got those 8s, got those 9s, those once in a while 10s and 11s. But it's, really the relievers have really outshined the starting pitching. And that could be, that's a dangerous thing. That's, your 2014, 2015 Royals. I know we keep on bringing up our Missouri teams, but it's the perfect example.
Because if you look what those teams did, that team did in 14 and 15, is kind of set the precedence of what's happened in 16 and 17. Look what the Yankees tried to do in 16. They went out and got Andrew Miller and Aroldis Chapman. Like they were trying to. There's a lot of teams trying to fit that mold.
Yeah.
And that's because the Royals were one of the first teams to do it.
Yeah, and now it's almost to having Andrew Miller, with the Indians, try to be that long reliever into, almost a starting pitcher, but also could come in as for one short inning. But that's a whole different thing.
Yep.
But you're seeing this trend right here. We've talked about it a million times with the, the NL Central Division, but the AL Central Division is, kind of a weird one. Not only that we expected Minnesota to do poorly, but they're doing it, but they're also kind of outshining spots where Cleveland really last year kind of dominated the relieving corps out of all 5 teams in the Central Division.
Yeah, and if you look at what Cleveland's doing right now in their relief corps, you got Cody Allen with a 219 and 24 innings pitched. But then you turn around and have Andrew Miller with a .29, 1 earned run in 31 innings. But he has 0 saves. And the starting pitching of the Indians look ERA numbers look very similar to what the Twins have going on. And so, I'm not going to start listing them all off because, if you want to reference all this, go to Baseball Reference. That's what I use. I use FanGraphs as well. But just looking at the comparison, I'm looking at the numbers. Those 2 teams are very similar right now. They got a couple guys. No guy is hitting 300 for either team right now. But then they got 1 or 2 guys that are hitting 270 plus. Like for the Indians, it's Michael Brantley and Jose Ramirez. Francisco Lindor has cooled off for his 23-year-old self, but his defense still is impeccable. But if you look at the rest of the team, Lonnie Chisenhall is 277. Those 3 guys in the starting lineup are the only guys hitting above 260. Everyone else is hitting below 260 or worse.
And I want to say something real quick, with this team. They get Edwin Encarnacion. They needed a DH like none other, get that blast power. Right now, he's hitting 246 with 12 home runs. But you also bring up, you said Francisco Lindor has cooled off to a nice 259.
Francisco Lindor is hitting 12 home runs and 27 RBIs.
Home runs.
He's hitting better than Edwin.
He's efficiently better than Edwin Encarnacion.
Yes, because he has a 11-point better batting average. He has less strikeouts. He has less walks, but the guy is better than your DH, and he's your shortstop at 23 years old.
That happens. Sometimes you gotta relax that, I was gonna say pirate, but you gotta relax that parrot on your arm, once in a while. Just get that going.
Or just don't do that.
It's a celebration. It's an odd one. It's an odd one.
I like baseball celebrations because baseball tries to turn this game into some gentleman game, and they don't want bat flips. They don't want celebration on home runs or strikeouts. But I love it. But just like all celebrations, some of them are just dumb, and I just don't understand it.
Exactly. Hell, baseball will always be a gentleman's game, no matter where you go. Comparing it to other sports. But we're not here to do that. We're here to talk about these teams.
And, let's hit it down a little. We've hit on the Indians, and I think the Indians, they have the team, they have the starting rotation, they have the bullpen, and they have the offensive capability to overtake the Twins.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they will.
Sooner or later.
And I think, yes. And they're a lot on the same track of the Cubs. A little bit of a World Series hangover. Even worse because they were up 3-1.
Mm-hmm.
And so that might be affecting them. Who knows? We don't know what's going on.
You got to also look at it real quick. I got this up here. Abraham Almonte, he's injured at the moment. He's on the 10-day. Brandon Geyer's on the 10-day. But you have two stud guys that was part of the rotation and part of the bullpen, Cody Anderson and Danny Salazar. Anderson with the 60-day and then Salazar with the 10. And, actually Cody Anderson's out for the year. I apologize for that. He had Tommy John surgery right at the start of April, which is really horrible. But it's just, looking at it, they have guys that, young, talented guys, but they get injured near the end, or maybe this is what should happen. They get injured early, they start rocking it near the end of the season, and then they just floor it in the postseason.
Like I've talked about, I don't know if I brought it up in the show or not, but in baseball, if you're going to get injured, you need to do it in April or May. And then you could turn around and have a fantastic August and September if you're on a competing team. ... Kyle
Schwarber.
Yes.
I hate to say it, but it's true.
Exactly.
Get an ACL injury your second game back. Your second game into the season last year. And then a miracle happens that he starts playing in the World Series.
Yep.
Crazy.
Yeah. And if we're going to move on to the Tigers. Mm-hmm. If you look at what they're doing as a team as a whole, we brought it up. They're of the AL average, they're hitting 255. So they're above average there. And then if you look at what they're doing pitching-wise, their ERA is a 4.74. They're below average, but the league average is 4.25. So they're about 50 points above that.
Mm-hmm.
And as a whole, you can kind of see guys that are doing well for them. Typical names: Cabrera, Justin Upton, JD Martinez, Victor Martinez, Jose Iglesias. They got guys that are hitting above the 260 mark and doing very well for them.
Mm-hmm.
No one's really hitting the cover off the ball with a lot of home runs. Miguel Cabrera's home run numbers are down. Justin Upton numbers are a little bit up with 13. JD Martinez with 10. Victor Martinez's numbers are down with 5. But they're still hitting for a decent average.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, I know that Miguel Cabrera is hitting for average, but could you say that he's over 30, I believe,
34.
and 34. So is he now finally hitting that spot where he's not in his prime anymore? He's only hit five home runs, and it's already in June compared to Justin Upton's 13. I mean, hell, Nick Castellanos has 8 home runs.
Nicholas, he's changed. He prefers to go by Nicholas now.
You're not getting that. You're not getting that. You're not getting that. Yeah, you've played more games than everybody else, but you're not getting that until you're bopping it, and you're not doing that. You're hitting 229 with a 304 on base percentage, 415. Mix that up, you got 700 on base plus slugging. Your BABIP's low, your ISO is high, but you're striking out 25% of the time. I don't want that. You're not getting Nicholas Castellanos. You're just getting Nick.
We struck a nerve with Andrew tonight, guys.
My blood's boiled. It's already boiled. You could probably dump it out and, do something with it. I don't know. But, I mean, talking about the NL Central. It was the NL Central.
We're not witches over here. But if you look at their starting pitching and their rotation, you're seeing a nice resurgence from Justin Verlander velocity-wise.
Mm-hmm.
Because a couple years ago, his velo was dropping. But he's turning around and he's hitting his norm. But he still has a 4.68 ERA.
Mm-hmm.
Daniel Norris, 4.41. Jordan Zimmerman, 5.72. Matt Boyd, 5.69. The only guy that's pitching really well for him is Michael Fulmer, which is positive for Tigers fans because he's 24 years old with a 3.40.
Mm-hmm.
And, you take a look at what's going on in their bullpen. Francisco Rodriguez, 6.53 ERA and 20 innings pitched. So it looks like they're starting to go away from him. Shane Green, 1.82, 29 innings pitched.
Mm-hmm.
Alex Wilson, 3.18, 28 innings pitched. Justin Wilson, 2.52 and 25 innings pitched. So you see that they're at least making the adjustments to go away from the bad bullpen pitching that has hurt the Tigers year after year after year since they went to that World Series.
Yeah, and that's another thing too. Just really, you got Anibal Sanchez and Francisco Rodriguez, guys that were part of that 2010 or 12 series, 12 series, and they just really haven't improved themselves. Like you said, Anibal Sanchez with that 9 ERA, Francisco Rodriguez with that 6.53. But you got other guys too. You got Blaine Hardy that has a 4.15. Yeah, it's not spectacular, but it could be. I mean, it's better than the other two. Warwick Sepulveda, 3.24. Chad Bell with a 2.70. I mean, they're finally, like you said, they're finally getting out of that horrible bullpen that they've had since 2012 and finally figuring out something else, and it's working in a sense.
Yes, in a sense. And do I see, I'll bring it up at the end of what I'm going to do with the Central. I'm going to talk about their AL wildcard race with 100 games left. But at least there's a writing on the wall that they're trying something new.
Yeah, exactly. And
that's always that's a positive. You don't want them to continually just do poorly and just like, oh, he's our closer because he closes.
That's me right there. He's a closer, but he closes.
Yeah.
Coffee is for closers.
Yes, exactly. So, what did you just reference?
I really don't know what that's from. I'm gonna do it right now.
Oh my God, Coffee is for closers. Death of a Salesman.
Okay, I've been wondering what movie that is. Okay,
It's not a movie. It's a play.
Okay. Well, it says Glengarry Glen Ross.
It's a movie.
Yeah, that part.
Yeah, Glengarry Glen Ross. Okay. God, you said it, and I'm like, man, why can't I remember?
It's mystery/crime film. Okay, so I need to watch it. And it was born in 90. It happened in 92. I was born in 92, so of course I got to see that.
Yes, and so we talked about the Tigers. So we're just working our way down the list here, and you get to the interesting case of the Kansas City Royals.
The interesting. I like it. Keep on going. I mean, hell, both Missouri teams are an interesting case this year.
And well, when you got guys in the lineup consistently in the everyday lineup, Alcides Escobar, Alex Gordon, and Brandon Moss are all batting a 180.
Ooh, the Mendoza line.
Yeah, and it is just frustrating because they continually put them in the lineup. Granted, Alcides Escobar is gone after the season. Raul Mondesi, his replacement, last I checked about 2 days ago, down in AAA, is batting a 306.
I like it. Now, I have to say one thing real quick, which is really funny, because you bring up that Mondesi is hitting 3 whatever in AAA, and Mondesi is as a poor average at the moment in the major leagues.
Yes,
with a
because
.095.
He started the season as the starting second baseman, and he's hitting his major league batting average for the year is a .095.
But the reason why I brought that up, sorry to interrupt you, is because it reminds me of our guy, Magneuris Sierra, outfielder for the St. Louis Cardinals. He's hitting a 374, I believe, when I last checked, in the majors. In the minors, he's hitting sub 250.
Oh, that makes sense.
But it's weird. It's just weird to see, like, okay, they do terrible in AA, but he's killing it in the MLB. But then you like look at the reverse, and it's like, all right, that's kind of okay. I mean, growing pains, but it's just like, what is this?
And so with Mondesi and just hitting, and that's how I'm going to really talk about the Royals, is they technically still have a shot. And I don't think Dayton Moore wants to sell out quite yet, because this is the last year of the team's core of Hosmer, Moustakas, Kane, and Perez all playing together. And that's the team that got you to the World Series 2 years in a row. And it's really hard to sell out a team like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so just looking at him, what pisses me off is Alex Gordon. They paid him that 4-year contract, and they're not going to take him out of the lineup.
Shouldn't have known it. But then again,
that's what I said.
But then again,
every Royals fan that I brought that up to, when we talked about, we need to re-sign Gordon, and I told them no, it's like I was summoning the devil.
Oh no, I know how that feels, because I said the same thing with Colton Wong.
Yep.
And
it's just like no. Alex Gordon, he signed this when he was 32 years old, so he's playing with us until he's 36. You see what happens to baseball players post 30 years old.
I would be okay if it was 4 years, half the money that he got, because then he get like $25 or $30 million out of it.
32 million.
Yeah, half that. Okay, Alex, you're not gonna get paid like other guys. You're not hitting 300 every year.
And even for his career, he never hit 300 for a season.
See, we're just saying things that we already knew, and nobody listens.
Yeah, and people argue, well, he's defensive monster. Yes, he is a great left fielder defensively, but hitting wise, offensively, he has never been more than average.
So could you say he's like the defensive version of, well, I was going to say Kyle Schwarber, but it wouldn't make any damn sense at all.
But there is a lot of positives that's happening with the Royals. Eric Hosmer is no longer doing his disappearance act and batting .314. Salvador Perez is hitting .274 with 13 home runs. Whit Merrifield, again, .281, 6 home runs. The guy is playing with his hair on fire right now.
Yeah, and
Mike Moustakas, 17 home runs, .275. Lorenzo Cain, .265, 6 home runs. And then we got this rookie, Jorge Bonifacio. He's only hitting .255 right now, but he has 8 home runs and 17 RBIs.
Hey, like that scout said, He really likes those guys. I told you, he really likes those guys. He likes
And
them.
I had a conversation with my dad just last week,
Mhm.
and he finally admitted that I called it on Bonifacio, because I've been talking
Nice.
about him for about 4 years now.
Nice.
But that's mostly to do with OOTP's roster updates for MLB The Show.
Nice.
And, that's if you don't play video games, it's a very fun one because you do learn a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Which is, you're like, oh, you learn something from a video game. No, you really do. Like, if you download the roster updates, especially with OOTP, you get a pretty good idea of what, at least the names of the prospects, and a good general rating of what they can be and where they're at.
Mm-hmm. And I just want to say, to reaffirm it, even though this is a different sport, Football Manager, which is pretty much the same thing, but with soccer, there have been actual owners' kids that the kid would completely go bonkers with their owner parent and just be like, gotta get this guy because he has good ratings on Football Manager. And it happens. I'm not saying they get the guy, but like with the rating system, it happens. The guys turn out really well. So it's just like you do learn a lot from these video games, and it's video games don't rot your brain.
Even if you don't take stock in their rating system, you'll at least learn the names of a lot of prospects. And you can do your own independent research and make your own decisions from there. But going back to the Royals, their pitching is what's hurting them. Jason Vargas, 218, very good. Danny Duffy, he's on the 10-day DL with an oblique strain, 354. Jason Hamill, his last couple games, he's actually turned it around very well, but he still has a high ERA of 5.43. But that has a lot to do with early in the season where he was just getting beat up. Ian Kennedy, coming off an injury, has actually done worse at 5.40. And then they've had spot starts from Jake Junis and Eric Skoglund. Skoglund has gotten beat up the last 2 starts after his first start where he did immaculate. And then, Kelvin Herrera is doing poorly with a 5.33. 22 games finished, 13 saves. So he's blown 9 saves. Mike Minor is actually pitching really well out of the bullpen at 225. Soria is a 381. He had like a 22 inning scoreless streak, and he's pitched 26 innings.
And I mean, go ahead.
Matt Strom, we talked about it in the group earlier. He's getting his first start. And out of the bullpen, he has a 4.50 ERA, but that has a lot to do with the beginning of the season, the first 2 weeks where he just got blown up. But Matt Strom, it's not odd for him to be a starter. He was a starter all the way through the system. And then he was brought up last year and used out of the bullpen, showed an electric left-handed arm, and they just kept him in the bullpen. And Peter Moylan, 7.06 ERA.
You got guys too. I don't think you brought up Scott Alexander. If you did,
no. Scott Alexander, he has 19 innings pitched, 1.37 ERA. Travis Wood is doing terrible, 8.31. Chris Young, 6.67. Seth Maness, he got sent back down, but he was in his 9 innings was a 3.72.
Just for me, there's guys in this organization that's ready to come up, ready to go. But I know that the Royals have some, they got guys that they've signed, and some of them aren't, ready to go, ready to give Jacob Junis some starts. Matt Strom, definitely a guy that, like you said, that's been through the system.
If the season keeps going the way it goes, I expect the Royals to start giving those guys shots. Jacob Junis. You got to. At this point, it depends how the season goes, but I don't. It's just really hard to see. I'm not a manager, not a GM, but if you look at it, And if I don't think Dayton Moore will make any trades pre-All-Star break.
Mm-hmm.
I think his trades will come post All-Star break, the 2 weeks, the 2 weeks window that you have before the trade deadline.
Mm-hmm.
And I think some of those guys are going to be an Eric Hosmer and a Lorenzo Cain. I think Lorenzo Cain, Jason Vargas, and Mike Minor are your 3 best trade options.
Mm-hmm.
Because most teams in the playoff hunt right now are pretty locked in at first base.
Yeah.
There's not a whole lot of need for an Eric Hosmer type on playoff contending teams.
Well, I mean, if the Cardinals actually get their shit together, we might need somebody. So we'll give you a call,
Lorenzo Cain, you look at what's going on in the Nationals outfield right now.
Mm-hmm.
They went all in with Adam Eaton, giving him a nice deal, out with a year with ACL tear. They need a center fielder.
And also, just real quick, since you're talking about the Nationals, I did see that the Nationals are looking into Kelvin Herrera.
Yep, there's a rumor about that. And don't be scared of Kelvin Herrera's 5.33 ERA right now. He has a track record of being better.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe if he gets in a situation where he's taken out of the closer role and put back in his 7th or 8th inning role, he could be that guy for that team.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And so pitching is always a good commodity to trade with. So Jason Vargas, Mike Minor, Kelvin Herrera. Mm-hmm. Those are the type of guys I see the Royals trading. But that's really all I have to say about the Royals.
Mm-hmm.
I could harp on them all day about keeping Alex Gordon, Brandon Moss, and ALC's Escobar in the starting lineup.
I can do that about the Cardinals. I understand.
Yep.
I understand. But there's something. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to move on to the White Sox. But what were you going to say?
Actually, talk about the White Sox first, because I was thinking of something else at the moment.
And I'm really not going to stay a whole lot of time on the White Sox because they're in the cellar. They're not going to fight their way out.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have the team for it. Their team's not playing well. But there's a lot to be excited about if you're a White Sox fan.
Yeah, exactly.
They went out and got Luis Roberts from Cuba, the 19-year-old supposed phenom. They drafted Jake Berger, that other guy I can't remember his name right now, and they got Yohan Makata as well.
And you also have to remember Lucas Giolito from the Nationals trade with Adam Eaton, which was really surprising to me at least.
They went full on rebuild, and it could pay off. They got a couple guys that are hitting well with them. They got Yolmer Sanchez batting .295. Jose Abreu is definitely having a nice comeback year with a .281. Melky Cabrera is doing his normal .275. Luray Garcia, 300. Avisail Garcia is batting .333. So there's a lot to be excited about this team right now for the future. Not right now, but you got to look forward to see where their pitching is going to go is the most important for the future. Right now, their starting pitching is okay. Their bullpen is pretty good, minus Dan Jennings. So you can see them trading off a guy like David Robinson or a guy like Tommy Kahnle that they could get a quick turnaround prospect with.
Yeah.
But besides that, there's really not much else to say about the White Sox.
Yeah, and I mean, just to reiterate how you said that it's all about the future. I mean, just looking at
and it could be as quick as 2018.
Yeah, it could just be next year, and I'm just really looking at it real quick with just looking at it if I can actually speak. Ronaldo Lopez, Lucas Giolito, two guys that were in the top 50 in AAA power rankings. You had Yohan Makata, actually the best prospect in all of baseball this year. Also, and I didn't know this, but there's a Nicky, which I'm okay with. All right, I'm okay with this, Nikki. But Nikki Demacio,
Don't do that to me, my darling.
Dominico, there we go. Watch yourself. You know, he's 17th right now in AAA power rankings. And so, I mean, right now, you got good guys that are coming up. And of course, I forgot about Michael Kopech, a guy that's in AA right now. He's the guy that throws, you know, somehow 105 on the dot every time. That's, again, like I said, to reiterate, it's all about the future, not about now.
That future could be, like I said, it could be 2018 and 2019 for the White Sox. It's not going to be. It's not going to be a 5-year rebuild with them.
Yeah, exactly.
They got prospects in the wings and waiting, and especially that Cuban guy, Luis Roberts, 19-year-old. If he could be a guy that could be in the majors by 20 or 21 years old, from what scouting reports say. But they gave them, I think they gave him a big $21 million signing bonus, and so we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
But how I wanted to kind of wrap up my little segment here is this nice FanGraphs article by Craig Edwards. The race for the AL wildcard could be crazy. I'm going to read a couple lines, and then I'm going to talk about it.
Yeah, go ahead. That was the thing I was going to bring up, but yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, and there are 7 teams, from his research, there are 7 teams with a close to 1 in 10 shot of making the playoffs, with a couple more in Kansas City and Oakland that possesses an outside chance of getting back into the mix. Toronto is so if you look at the standings, race for the wild card. Here he has a standings board. He has the Twins at the top of the division because he thinks the Indians are going to overtake them. You got the Rays 1 game back, the Orioles 2 games back, the Angels, Mariners, and Rangers and Blue Jays 2.5 back, Tigers 3 back, Royals 5 back, and the Athletics 6.5 back. It's kind of talking about how wide open that wild card spot is because none of these teams are really playing that well. And it's interesting to see because, I brought it up, and Craig Edwards brought it up as well. The Royals don't want to sell out yet because this is the last year with their core. But he said, let's say the Royals go crazy, win 8 of their next 10 games, and then trade for Zach Cozart. Their wins forecast would increase from 75 to 80, and playoff odds move from 3% to 20%. So what he says, the best look is that Jose Bautista and Josh Donaldson are getting back, and Toronto is going to be that team that's going to surge.
I could see that. I mean, right, again, we thought they were out in April, but they've crawled themselves back in now. They're only 2 games under 500. And, looking at it all, just from, you're saying, I know you love your Royals and all that stuff, and there's, like, certain teams that are, really vying for spots and really getting streaky. And I'm not saying too much streaky, but Yankees, of course, we can't. I mean, that's an automatic. They're 6-game winning streak. But Tampa Bay, a team that's part of the wild card, they're on a 2-game. Royals, and I know the White Sox are already out of it, but the Royals and White Sox, 2-game winning streak. Texas is on a 5-game winning streak. So there's a bunch of guys that are, vying for spots, and you also got to look at the negatives of it too. You have Baltimore at a negative, not negative, but you have Baltimore at a 6-game losing streak, and the Houston Astros, even though they're not part of wild card talk, but it's giving opportunities for the teams lower than them, they're on a 3-game losing streak right now. So, I mean, it's not set in stone. Of course, baseball is never set in stone until really the season is over and the postseason is done. But, looking at this, the Royals and Tampa Bay right now are really 2 teams that are kind of in the, almost in the driver's seat, that are, kind of looking from the outside, looking in, even though the Rays are second in this standings. But we never thought the Rays were going to get to that spot. I thought they were a solid 5 for sure. But now they're only 3 games back from the Yankees, and looking at the West, it's kind of, hard to look at that stuff because it's already over. But
the AL West looks like the NL East right now.
Yeah, I said,
but better because the Astros have just. And speaking of the Astros, the Royals took 2 of 4.
Yeah, and
that's not a series win, but it's 500.
And just to reiterate how these teams are going, the Rangers. I was like, they were talking about the Rangers in this. Rangers right now are up by 2 in the bottom of the 9th against the Astros, taking, winning 2 games, quote unquote, as they say for it. Right now, the Angels are tied with the Yankees. Let me go down here. Royals are beating
the Angels are without Mike Trout for 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah, and
so if they had Mike Trout, their playoff odds would be better.
Mm-hmm,
so what's not to say that they can maintain where they're at now, and when he gets back, that team could just surge away.
Mm-hmm, exactly, and we brought up like I keep on bringing up teams. Royals right now leading the Giants 2-1. Then you have the Rays. They obliterate the Blue Jays 8-1 today. Then the Indians, you say that they're gonna take over. Well, Craig Edwards says that, but they lost today to the Dodgers 7-5. And you just keep on looking at it, and it's like there's close but no cigars. But then other games become blowouts. I mean, the D-backs beat the Tigers 7-6, but then you look at the Orioles-White Sox game, and again, we say the White Sox are out of it, but they beat the Orioles 6-1, which really then messes up, messes with the other teams, like the Blue Jays. They lost, the Orioles lost, so that brings them down. But the Tampa Bay Rays get that nice push up. And then I didn't even realize this today, but the Twins really took it out on the Mariners 20-7 with 28 hits. So, I mean, it's like we said earlier, the Twins are hitting into the right moments, and now they're becoming a team that could possibly, undoubtedly take that wild card spot. So there's just a lot of things with what's going on with the game of baseball.
Always. And so we'll see what happens, but if you want to check out the article, it gives a nice graphs, and it's visual. It's a very visual graph, and just you can kind of see where he has their playoff spots and kind of how wide open that wild card spot is.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it's a great article, and it actually talks about not only just a team performance, but also individual performances. Like I believe go ahead.
And how they could affect their playoff chances.
Yeah.
Of how adding a certain piece or a certain piece, but player could drastically affect a team's playoff chance.
Yeah, and like I said, I was going to say Kevin Kiermaier's they're
out
talking
for
about
a couple months.
Out for a couple months. They've talked about that. Miguel Cabrera, Justin Verlander, all the main stars of the team, the superstars of the team, and some of the players right now aren't so hot, but I mean, it could change sooner or later. So,
always. But besides that, that's what I got.
That's what you got? Give me what you got. Do you know what that's from?
It sounds familiar. What's from?
It's from Rick and Morty. With the big heads, and let's get swifty.
I've only watched, I think, 3 or 4 episodes of Rick and Morty.
You need to watch more. You gotta give me what you got. Because coffee's for closers, and you're not cracking a cold one with the boys if you're not watching Rick and Morty. I got you back. I got you back this time. So anyway, that's it. Everything for what we have to say. It was a good show. We brought up everything, how the wild card is shaping up, how these central divisions are really changing, and are meddling into, some, I hate to say it, but some average or mediocre baseball where we have no defined winner yet, but it's going to happen sooner or later, I should say.
Yes. And so the Central Division is going to be the one to watch for each East and West Division. The top teams are kind of running away with it at this point, and those Central Divisions are wide open. So, like I said, like we brought up earlier, it's going to be a dogfight, and not that I condone that, but it's going to be a good fight to the end of the season.
Just don't make it as Michael Vick dogfighting, and we'll be good.
Yes.
I shouldn't laugh at that because that's really horrible. But anyway, since we
won't talk about that meme I sent you earlier.
Yeah, that's a whole different story. But anyways, since that will be it for the day, for the MLBeers podcast, if you want to get in contact with us, we have a Twitter at MLBeers podcast. Then we have a Facebook page and our actual website at MLBeers at MLBeers.wordpress.com. The Facebook page is, of course, the MLBeers podcast. We also have an Instagram, MLBeers podcast, I believe is the name, or is it Major League Beers on Instagram?
Let me pull it up, and I could obviously tell you because we're a professional podcast.
Yeah, okay. So while you're doing that,
it's MLBeers podcast.
Okay, I was just trying to make sure that we don't change, because I know that our email, the one that you can get in contact with if you want to get us by email, is majorleaguebeers at gmail.com. Of course, yes. We both have our own Twitter accounts. Mine is the real AWS13. And Phil, what is yours?
I'm at Philco816.
And of course, the one thing is we kind of brought up this group that we have on Twitter. So if you are listening right now on either SoundCloud, iTunes, I think TuneIn is still on our website, even though I haven't really messed with that in a while. But if you're listening,
if you're on any sort of podcast app, since we're on iTunes, most podcast apps use iTunes search history, so you can find us in all of that. You can leave a comment on iTunes. We'll get back to you. You can rate us.
Actually, we want you to comment on iTunes.
Yes.
Not you can comment if you want. We want you to comment on our iTunes. Give us your thoughts. Give us, that nice 5-star rating so we can be at the top of the podcast charts. And, like I said, if you want to be part of our group, our Twitter group, of course, just get in contact with us and we can automatically add you to that. We are part of, totally almost forgot about this, but we are part of a network now. We've been part of the network since probably episode 11 or 12. But anyways, the network that we are a part of is the Tangent Bound Network. And Phil, you know more about that. You want to give a little summary about that?
Essentially what they are, it's a free network, and what we do is we just cross-promote all of their shows. We promote their website, we promote what they do, which is Mark is a very good guy. He's the guy that runs it. And if you just hit their website, Tangent Bound Network, they're on Twitter at TangentBoundPC. You can see what shows are on there, and a lot of good shows are on there. And just go to the website, look at them, and take a listen.
Yeah, and I think that's everything I have to say for this. So, of course, if you want to talk to us, I just realized use the hashtag TrapJesus, or I'm trying to think of other hashtags that we can try to make our own. But anyway, as our creed, as our motto, as our saying here on the MLBeers podcast, win or lose, there is always booze.